is Angela Scruggs, Executive Director and Program Manager of LINK. Thank you so much, Angela, for being on the program with us today and talking to us a little bit about LINK. Tell me what LINK is.
Well, the LINK is a nonprofit Christian agency, and we strive to help deaf teens and young adults to transition not just from surviving and coping with life, to be able to live the life, an abundant life that's accessible to all of us.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. When was LINK established? Tell me a little bit about that.
Okay, we began working on establishing the LINK in 2013. And since then, we've had wonderful experiences and opportunities to provide services for the deaf, deaf teens and young adults, and residential services as well.
Okay. How hard is it for children to live in society who are deaf?
It can be a challenge. About 95% of deaf children are born into hearing families. And oftentimes those families do not learn sign language, so they're not able to communicate adequately with their children. And so there are lots of things that we learn that you and I may have learned, just what we call incidental learning. Just, I have 3 older sisters, so there's lots I learned from them or learned not to do.
Exactly.
You know,
probably more of the
not to do. And so there are just things that happens within a family dynamic that if you don't have communication, you're not going to learn some of those things. And so we like to help empower deaf teens and young adults to be able to learn some of those things they may have missed in that family environment.
Okay, I gotcha. I thought when you said that, I thought of my mother always said that my oldest brother was the practice child.
Yes.
So, yeah. So, we didn't maybe get quite as much as he did. But,
Right.
Do they ever have physical ailments that come along as well as being deaf?
Well, being deaf, usually for most people, it's going to vary. You have, they have any type of situations that we experience as hearing people. A lot of times, a motto, so to speak, that the deaf community uses, they say that we're no different than anyone else, we just can't hear. And so oftentimes that's the case, is that there's just that deficit as far as them not being able to hear, and they speak another language. American Sign Language is a language, and there's a different culture that comes with being deaf. And so for the most part, those are the things that usually presents other challenges when they're out in the world, or just the barriers between being deaf and living in a hearing world.
Do you find that they really don't want to be treated any differently? They just want to be understood the only way they can, right?
Yes, definitely. They don't want to be treated differently. They want to be treated as equal.
Right.
And with that does mean that there are going to be communication barriers, but it's about making the effort. I remember when I began learning sign language, and I knew just very little. And so just the fact, though, that I was interested, that I was making an effort, that I was wanting to learn more about their culture and who they were, and allowing them to teach me, that alone made a connection, and they were willing to engage with you when they see that you're willing to engage with them. So it is a lot about understanding each other.
Right. It's a two-way street, right?
Definitely.
You got to kind of get it on both ways there.
Definitely.
Are parents concerned that they may not be able to communicate when it comes to their child who might be deaf?
Yes. A lot of times when parents find out that their child is deaf, they're floored because they don't know what to do. And oftentimes in the medical community, the information is limited. They may give them information about hearing aids or other assistive devices, but a lot of times it's going to vary. Every deaf person will not benefit from hearing aids or will not benefit from cochlear implant. And so what do you do in that meantime as the parents are trying to figure out how to communicate with their child and how to raise them up? And so oftentimes parents are frustrated, they're confused, and they're unsure about how to proceed, because there's no manual. One, there's no manual for raising kids, but then there's no manual for how do I raise a deaf child.
Right.
And oftentimes the deaf community is just something that many people are unaware of. And so when a parent is faced with that challenge of having a deaf child, they don't know where to turn.
Right. They need somebody who they can confide in as well.
Yes.
So that's where LINK comes in.
Yes.
Now we know that LINK helps in the physical sense, but what about the spiritual sense?
Well,
when it comes to these children?
we help in both.
Okay.
So, a lot of these deaf people, when they grow up, again, spiritually, they don't have the information a lot of times. I've heard stories over and over again of deaf people who grew up going to church or going to mass, but they never knew what was happening because there was no interpreter. And so I think of one lady in particular, she would tell me that she would ask her mother, what are they saying? And her mother said, oh, I'll tell you later. And then later she'll get a very condensed version of this hour-long sermon. And so it's very important to be able to sit down with them and be able to give them spiritual leadership and guidance in their own language.
Yes, absolutely. Because that is the most important thing when it comes to us as Christians.
Yes.
We need to make sure that they have the correct information about the
Exactly.
Word of God.
Exactly.
How important is a person's faith when it comes to dealing with these types of situations?
Well, I think faith is just important for us in general.
Yes.
And again, when working with these deaf teens and young adults, a lot of times we have to start with the basics. I know, again, there's lots of information that we can learn, whether it's just riding in the car and overhearing a song on the radio that brings us inspiration and hope, or just hearing, from myself in particular, growing up in a family that's a Christian family, maybe hearing my mom sing songs or whatever the case may be. Those are things that gave me inspiration, gave me hope, that strengthened my faith. And so a lot of times deaf people don't have those opportunities. They can't just turn on the TV and hear an inspirational song, or turn on the radio and hear an inspirational song. And so, as you were mentioning, we want to be able to provide them what the truth is so they can make an informed decision about who God is and understand what a relationship with God is like through Jesus Christ. And so when they get that and understand it on a personal level, then they can utilize that information and build upon in other areas of their life.
Right. They may not, well, like you said, because I remember as a kid, and even still today, music is a big part of me. So we need to really be sensitive in that area when we come in contact with somebody that cannot hear. Don't you feel that people really need to, try to make a better connection however they can?
Yes. Oh, yes. And deaf people are usually very appreciative, and they want that connection.
Right.
Because a lot of times being deaf can be isolated, because the deaf community, even though it's small, they're spread out. We have deaf people that live in different areas of town, but they will all come to a deaf church, on a Sunday to worship together. And they may have, driven 30 minutes, 20 minutes, or some even less. And so I think being very understanding and being open and willing to help them and to build a relationship in any way you can is always helpful.
Right. Tell us a little bit about the success of Link up to this point.
We started out, and God is so good because He's provided people every step of the way. Everyone that's been working in the ministry so far, it's all volunteer. And so even from our house monitors to painting and renovations, everything, even in the day-to-day operations of working with the residents, it's all been volunteered. So that's been great. And then there are things that we take for granted that we've been able to help these teens and young adults establish a better understanding with, like opening a bank account, or learning how to navigate throughout the city if you don't have a car, riding public transportation and things of that nature. And then we've also had some residents who have transitioned to other states and to pursue academic and other job-related goals. So it's been amazing.
What do you find has been the most challenging aspect of starting this particular program?
I think one of the things that's been very challenging is just getting the word out. The deaf can be a hidden population, so to speak. It's something that you can't just pick out a deaf person by how they look. They look just like you and I.
Exactly.
And it's not until you engage with them that you realize, there's a communication barrier. And so I think that's been one of the challenges that we've experienced is getting the word out about the needs in the deaf community. And then also another challenge that I've noticed is working with the parents. Parenting is a challenge by itself.
Exactly.
And they have already reservations about allowing their kids to go out into the world. But I think those fears are exacerbated when they have a child who's deaf. And so in a lot of ways, it's felt like co-parenting with those parents
Sure.
as we kind of walk along this journey together to help them to begin to loosen those reins in some ways. And then a challenge for that deaf person to say, no, you really can do this on your own, and we are here to support you.
Mm-hmm. Now, you say that everybody is volunteer at Link.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're looking for volunteers, you're not necessarily just looking for someone who can communicate to the deaf, but you're also looking for other people to do other things.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Okay. So, like, what type of things do you need volunteers for?
So, as I was mentioning with the renovations, you don't need to know sign language to hit a hammer, or hit a nail, so to speak. So we need volunteers in that regard, volunteers with just the basic things of running a nonprofit. We're very small, and so just support and prayers. And there are lots of people out in the community that I've even met that may say, oh, I had a neighbor who was deaf, or I have a family member who's deaf, and they want to be able to give back in that way. And so, just going to our website and getting more information or contacting us. There are lots of ways we can use volunteers, and it doesn't always require for you to know sign language.
Right.
And there are other ways to communicate with deaf people if you don't know sign language through video, phone services, and different things of that nature.
And real quickly, give me your website.
Our website is thelink4deaf.org.
All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate you being with us, and I hope that you get a lot of people calling.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
We hope you were blessed by today's program. Please join us next time for Join Our Town. We'll see you then.